Hi there, I'm just testing my Yeah. All right, call the meeting, the April 15th Battleground City Council regular meeting to order. If you can, please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor McCoy.
Here.
Councilmember Ferrer.
Present.
Councilmember DeRozier.
Here.
Councilmember Cortez. Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Overholser. And the clerk is present. That concludes the roll.
Thank you, Ms. Lilly. Next up, we have agenda approval. The only caveat to the agenda approval, if somebody has any issue with any contract that includes money, add an exec. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion just for approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to some reports, presentations, the meetings that we attended on behalf of the council. I'll do mine too real quick. RTC, not much to report, nothing to report there. And then the Urban County Policy Board, also nothing to report. Councilmember Overholser, Echo.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCoy. Well, we're working on the 2024 work plan outlines at Echo. We had a subcommittee that was responsible for the inclement weather response. They met a couple times during our last month here. I reluctantly volunteered to be on a subcommittee for the Emergency Action Plan Response Co-op, along with Diana Perez, City of Vancouver, and Thomas Strobin of Le Center, Mayor of Le Center, along with some of the Vancouver Housing Authority and Council for the Homeless. Other than that, we're just trying to work towards a consensus and an action plan to work on for the year.
Thank you, sir. And was there a C-Trend meeting, or I believe it was canceled, correct?
Yeah, no, C-Tran meeting is coming up tomorrow night. That's all. I'll report at our next meeting.
Sure. All right, takes us on to the mayor's report. Mr. Moore, I was just going to go ahead and add you to the mayor's report here. If anybody had any questions on the process of the memo that Mr. Moore sent out, now would be the time to asking those questions. Do you have any concerns? And I'll let Mr. Moore, you just want to give like a brief 2-minute synopsis of what you sent out. That'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. On behalf of the Prothman Company, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to work with Battleground on this important recruitment for your next city manager. I did outline sort of the time frame and the process that we normally we use for a city manager recruitment. Just by way of brief introduction to yourselves and maybe to some of the community that's there in the room or that's watching tonight. I'm a former city manager myself. I was a city manager in Yakima, where we had a council manager form of government. Also a county manager in Thurston County, again with a county commission manager form of government, and many years as a department director. So I've been in the business a long time. I'm partially retired now for the several years working with Prothman on these important recruitments. So we are currently in the process of working with your staff to prepare what we call the position profile. This is the document that we use to widely publicize and advertise the position. Fortunately, you had already gone through the process of updating your position description, so that's been finalized. That's excellent. I expect that your staff will have all the information that we need sometime this week to finish the profile. We will draft that up and then send it to the city for final approval. That profile kind of talks about the history of the city, the sort of the government, the community, some of the opportunities and challenges for the position. And then it's of course very clear about what the requirements are, the minimum qualifications and the preferred qualifications. and the salary range. And I know the salary range is something you're still working on. I did propose a range in my memo from 195,000 to 225,000 as a range, and that's based on looking at the city manager salaries in other communities of similar population and kind of in nature. Once we get the profile finalized and we launch the position, we typically keep it open for 5 weeks. I will be monitoring applications on a daily basis against the profile and position description. Shortly after that, the first review date, we don't call it a closing date, we call it a first review date. I will be doing, shortly after that comes, I will do preliminary interviews with candidates that look like they would meet your qualifications and from their written materials look like they would be a good fit. I'll do an in-depth preliminary interview. I'll write up notes. We'll send all the applicant materials, their resume, cover letter, response to supplementary questions that are part of the application, and my notes, and we'll send those to council in an electronic file. We will set up a work session, and I can either, I live in Port Townsend, I could either come down in person or by Zoom. We would meet with council, and then you would identify the individuals that you would like to bring to Battleground for a finalist interview. When I met with the mayor and deputy mayor last week, we did talk about sort of how those interviews unfold. Typically, a community will have an open public reception for the candidates the evening before interviews. The community is invited to come and meet with all the candidates. We will prepare comment cards so that community members can write down their comments and share those with council. The following day, the interviews will take place. There will be one panel of all council members and then one panel of some community stakeholders that council members identify. And we talked a little bit about who those stakeholders might be. Could be city managers from nearby jurisdictions, members of the Planning Commission or the Park Commission. They're in Battleground. Somebody from just a citizen that's interested, perhaps the fire district chief. So there's opportunities for input from a broader community perspective. Typically during the interview day, during lunchtime, it's a meet and greet opportunity for staff. And again, the same comment cards would be available so staff members can come and meet with the candidates and provide their feedback to council members. After the interviews take place, there's typically a joint debrief so that members of the other council can the other stakeholder panel can share their perceptions and their thoughts and the things that they think are strong or maybe of a concern of each candidate. Typically then council will go into executive session as allowed by RCW to deliberate the qualifications for a senior appointed official. You can't take a vote in executive session, but if you reach a spot where you feel like you can come out of executive session and into open session, make a decision one way or another, that I'll be there to help facilitate that process. Sometimes councils need a time or a week or they want a follow-up interview. Sometimes they're ready to make an offer the day of the interviews. And so however it turns out, I'll be there again to help facilitate that process. So that's a quick overview. I hope I didn't talk too quickly, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions you may have.
It was pretty thorough. Any questions from council? Any heartburn over the range? So I think we're good to go with the profile then, Mr. Moore.
Terrific.
Appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to meeting you all in person.
Thank you, sir.
Good night now.
Well, that brings us to the reason we have to do this. Ms. Erdman's been with us for 10 years. I'm sure it only feels like 2. Somebody once said it's having 7 bosses. It's a difficult job. Hopefully it was a rewarding time. It was a pleasure for me to work with you. I enjoyed it, learned a lot. Hopefully you'll learn a lot as well in Kennewick, but it's been a pleasure for me. the partnership has been productive and good, and enjoyed our time together. Even the trips to DC were enjoyable, believe it or not. So you've always had a professional air. You've always handled yourself very well. So it's with a heavy heart that we present you with a small token. Miss Alicia stole your name.
Oh,
while
yeah,
you
I
weren't-
see that.
put
Wasn't
in
even
a-
looking.
Put in a temporary paper one. Yeah, watch those PIOs.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure working here at the city. It's been a great 10 years, starting out as community development director and then having you guys give me the opportunity to step into the city manager role and give me that confidence. So I really do appreciate it. My time here at Battleground's been great. The staff has been amazing. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. And it was a very hard decision to move along, but it was the right path for me professionally, and it wasn't without a heavy heart that it feels very weird to be leaving. So I do appreciate it. And again, thank you guys for the opportunity of giving me this position. You've helped me grow professionally, and I thank you all for that. So.
Alicia, is there anything you want to announce? Is it public the Friday, I believe now? Or no? Okay, okay. Never mind. So moving on to my last thing, I wanted to point out that I read and got a report on the use of the drones for apprehending a suspect. And I was going to ask for council consensus, maybe if we could maybe have an after action on that to see if there's anything else that the department needs to supplement the drone program. Because I know when we toured it, we talked about batteries, extra batteries. And so I'd be curious, and I don't know if council as well, how it performed. Did we see any gaps? Are there anything that the council as a whole needs to be aware of?
Well, thank you, Mayor. We just happened to speak about it this morning at the Harvest Day planning. One of the visions that I've asked them to start looking into right now, because we're only 90 days out, is I've used it on other applications. It's incredible as far as a force multiplier. You can pop it straight up, whether we launch from this building or from the PD, and it just allows the incident commanders, the city leadership to go into a room where they'll beam that, and you can look at where you have problem spots. You can look at any potentials that are getting the technology is phenomenal. I see that being a tremendous value for that upcoming, but we'll continue to look. There are certainly some limitations, but would look forward to the opportunity to show you, I think, what else it can do.
All right, that concludes Mayor's report. Next up, we have presentations.
Thank you, Mayor McCoy. First up, we have our only presentation for this evening. We're going to turn it over to Community Development Director, Ms. Lado, to talk about the code enforcement FTE extension.
Thank you. Good evening. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight, I will be providing a status update for our code enforcement program. And to provide some history and some additional context, over the past few years, based on council direction, staff has been discussing and analyzing the code enforcement program to identify deficiencies and implement improvements. Staff have completed a variety of initiatives, which I will highlight later in the presentation. And we feel that these have resulted in standardization and increased efficiencies. I do want to mention that currently our code enforcement FTE is funded only through June 30th of this year. So at the end of the presentation, we'll be asking for council consensus to bring forward a budget amendment to fund the program for the remainder of 2024. These are the areas, specific areas that we will be focusing on this evening for the program. So beginning with purpose. So this slide represents the why do we have a code enforcement program? Code enforcement is an important program that allows us to educate our community and help bring properties into compliance, resulting in better livability, safety, and quality of life. We have knowledgeable staff that has built relationships with the community, and our code enforcement program also includes an efficient and responsive animal control element. The procedure and process are the how piece of our program. Almost all code enforcement programs, including ours, function under a complaint-based reporting system, which means that cases originate from a resident or business person and can be reported using a variety of methods, which are indicated on this slide. The high-level process flow diagram represents the different steps in the workflow and the possible endings. And as you can imagine, not all cases are created equal. The process of enforcement and obtaining compliance can be time-consuming and requires multiple touch points, which include site visits, letter writing, contact with property owners, documentation, etc. Some cases are able to be closed quickly, and some can take months to resolve. So our code enforcement officer is the primary point of contact for the large variety of complaints that are received. Given the limited resources, both in staffing and funding, we prioritize our cases based on the nature of the violation and its impact on public health, safety, and general welfare. This slide provides examples of the types of violation that code enforcement receives and in response to, and that's in no particular order. So these graphs represent our case volumes, types of violations, and performance. The first chart in the top left shows the number of cases received and created quarterly by community development, which date back to 2022. These figures show an upward trend of cases received. For example, this year's Q1 total of 150 cases is a 138% increase compared to the Q1 total of 63 cases created in 2023. The second chart, which is the top right, shows the breakdown by violation type of those 150 cases. And then the third chart, which is the pie chart in the bottom right corner, shows that of the 150 cases created this year, 90 of those cases have been closed. I did want to mention that code enforcement recently received a large number of private parking and RV-related complaints that we're currently working through. So that had a direct impact on that open to closed ratio of 2024 cases. As population and caseload continues to grow, staffing and capacity remain our biggest challenges. As I had mentioned, staff has completed some great work on a variety of initiatives and improvements. There were completion of Battleground Municipal Code updates, which resulted in consistent, clear process and specific code language related to timeframes and procedures. From an accessibility standpoint, we implemented the ability to report code violations using the online web form. And internally, we began utilizing our software to track cases more systematically. Also prioritizing the types of violation that staff responds to and the shifting of the public parking enforcement piece to the parking enforcement officer, which is housed in the police department, has allowed us to utilize our resources more effectively. In addition to the improvements that have already been completed, staff has identified additional areas that we'd like to focus on to further increase the efficiencies and compliance. And those include additional technology updates to enhance our workflow, our queuing, and our reporting, standardized forms and templates, work with law to formalize the process and focus efforts on abatement, and creation of a code enforcement action plan, which could combine an biannual proactive sweeps, which are focused on specific violations, in addition to some community outreach and education. Education is considered the first step in prevention and will often garner more favorable results. So we think that could be an important element. So that concludes the presentation. I wanted to ask if there's questions or comments.
Mayor Bowman? Can you go back a screen too, by the way?
Screen 2.
Just back.
Oh, I'm sorry, back 2. I
no, just
apologize.
back one to where you're recommend.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. So we've been at this a while. I think it was Mr. Cortez and Mr. Rogers knows probably, but I think it was about 5 years ago. We went to Tyler Technologies, maybe a little bit longer. 6. And that was supposed to cure all this stuff that you're seeing for recommendations. So I guess what I want to know is why is this being brought to us now when Tyler was supposed to do all this stuff for us? And then we had some issues with it. And all I have heard about code enforcement for the last 6 years is we're trying to get, we got to get some stuff in place. The software isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. And it looks like we're being told that again, that this isn't working. It's frustrating to me. I mean, when I see standardized forms and templates, like that to me is like a no-brainer. Like somebody needs to sit down, make a form, go down to Inkability, say, make us a bunch of copies of this, just like we do with PD and parking enforcement. And we have standardized forms and templates. It seems like this is just, I don't know. To me, it just seems like this is kind of the position that no one's over, but everyone I don't even know how to say this. No one's really controlling and helping implement stuff. And it's just kind of, we don't know what's going on with it. There are a lot of challenges still out there. We see them quite often. I'm sure each one of us can just look in our own neighborhoods and see code enforcement issues. And some of these last years, I know we talked about when we had a city attorney changing our ordinances so that we had some teeth in some of this stuff. And that's been 2-3 years ago. I don't know how many of these cases have even come before the courts to even look at. So that's my only concern with this is we really haven't got a hold of it, and we've got something going on, and we're trying to develop a system while that's happening instead of developing a system and saying this is how we're going to do it. And that's what I feel like we've been doing the last 13 years since I've been here, is that it really hasn't been, we don't have a system. And we've been told we're getting a system, and we've never had a system. And part of that's probably because it's a department of one. And if PD needs a system, guess what? PD's getting a system. If Public Works needs a system, they're getting a system because we need to have it. But if we just got one person that needs a system, it's like, you're on the bottom of the list, but that's one of the highest priorities we've had as a council. And it's just got kicked down the road. So, I think we need to, I think me personally, I would like to continue the direction that we had talked about in the beginning and then figure this out later because it's not working the way it is. I think our parking enforcement that's a system that is working, but that's not part of this. So thank you.
And just to clarify too, I don't think we're not saying we need like new software or updated software by any means. I think the message here is that we just need to spend some time to massage the existing software so that the tasks and the key points for setting up inspections and being able to map out through the day are working properly. And unfortunately, like you said, it is a department of one. And so we have struggled with being able to get the implementation and the process for that key piece of the software, just because they don't have any support or any IT directly working with them on a regular basis. That's kind of been left up to the planners and the permit techs who implemented InterGov to begin with. So code enforcement's been a little bit of a struggle to get up and running. We've tried a couple different platforms, and I think that's one thing that Kristen, as she's come on, has really identified and figured out. She's diving into InterGov as kind of one of her big priorities so that we can clean up some of those things, with code enforcement being that a key piece of that, is really diving into how that software is functioning. And so we're not saying we need a new system or an overhaul. We just need to figure out and make sure that we're utilizing that system to the best of its ability, because currently we're not. And that's a priority that Kristen's been working on.
And I appreciate that. And I am new to this role, so I understand there's been conversations. I feel passionately that it's an important program. I have tried to familiarize myself with it. I kind of believe in process improvement and efficiencies. And the standardized forms, for example, if we could make our software work so that whatever information we put into it for that case is able to be populated into a form like just to find some efficiencies. So absolutely, it seems like a no-brainer. I'm committed to getting these things in place and getting them moving forward. And we definitely have a vision for how we can make that happen. Obviously, I don't know that I can do that by June 30th. So that's why I'm asking that we're going to need some time. This is definitely actually one of my first priorities since joining. And I know we can get there. So, but I do absolutely appreciate the history on this.
So I was just going to comment about the software improvements or ask about it, but you guys handled that nicely. I just want to let you know that I appreciate all the work that you put into this and the improvements that you're recommending for this. And I look forward to continued success in that department. Thank you.
As with council member DeRochers, I was going to make the same comment that I see on the enhancement side, that we update the webpage and the tracking, but on the recommendations, we need to get that improvements in workflow developed. I completely understand. And but I will also note that we have a really good improvement Q1 '24 to Q1 '23. And I would just love to see that continue. So, I think we should look at a budget amendment for continuing to retain that employee through 24. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
We're just looking for, I don't think there's a motion yet. We're just looking for consensus. So one consensus. Anybody else? I just have a couple quick questions. Are you satisfied with the efficiency of the department?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? Department or code enforcement program? May I ask
The
that?
code enforcement
Okay,
department,
sorry.
whatever that you want to, however you want to parse.
I
it.
think given the current resources, we're doing as well as we can. I believe in software and working smarter, not harder. I think there's a lot of opportunity to streamline, reduce kind of the heavy lift and make the system work for us. So I am happy with the department. However, I think that there are definitely some efficiencies we can find and implement, which will increase our capability and our capacity a bit.
do you need any resources above and beyond that which you have for the software improvements, and how soon would those be completed?
Right now, and again, I admittedly came from knowing a lot about a software to feeling kind of like a bit behind the curve, so I'm getting caught up. I believe a lot of what we need is already built out. So I do not believe there is the need for additional like revenue for us, for example. I think we have what we need. We just need to make sure we can get the pieces turned on and working together. So based on my current knowledge, I think we have what we need. We don't need additional resources. I just need a bit of time to build out some of those pieces, get them working together, get staff trained on how to utilize them.
What's a fair time frame for that?
Do you think?
I think it's going to take, we're diving into the software piece now. So to be able to get those standard forms and templates in there functioning, get the workflow completely built out, and then, spend a little bit of time on, field testing that and how that's going to work. I say probably 3 to 4.
I was going to say 3 to
maybe.
4 months. And may I add the caveat that we currently have an upgrade scheduled, kind of a major upgrade to our software system. So our permitting software for June 8th. So we can do some work, but recognizing that we really need to be on that more recent platform in order for, kind of a best practice starting point. So I would have agreed about 3 months. However, recognizing we're putting some efforts and staff time into testing the upgrade before we go live in June. So I would ask that maybe we start that 3-month clock.
Mike?
That actually is already part of our support and everything we pay for maintenance, et cetera. It's just kind of a standard, software continues to improve. We need to be on a more recent platform, bug fixes, et cetera.
And I can tell you too, this is one shift that we are making in the community development department, that the software piece is something that's kind of continued to fall off the radar screen. And most of it has been due to staffing and trying to have staff that are working on the permitting and the planning processes, also building out and implementing the software system. So this upgrade could have happened a while back, but we just didn't have the staffing resources to focus on being able to test that and make sure that was moving forward. So that is one shift that we're trying to make. And one reason why Ms. Lato is here is to kind of help pull all that together and get that system functioning and moving forward in a way more efficient manner. So.
And I appreciate that. And I understand you just started, and I don't want to give that impression that don't feel like you're doing your job at all. Is there anything then that, instead of relying on the people in-house, be it IT or people in the department to fix the software, and I can't speak for everybody, but I can tell you 90% of the complaints, 90% of the comments I get outside of anything that's police related are code related. And I'm not saying positive or negative, just like, hey, can you, would you, it's this. So, right. Is there anything, could we put a contract IT person on it for 2 months? Just
The problem with these is mostly it takes the department to build out the workflow, because an IT person is not going to understand how that process works. We do have some contracts with the software providers to help make those changes in the back end to be able to implement those workflows and provide additional training. But you really do need the experts being involved in that process. And I'll let Megan kind of talk a little bit more, because this is her area.
So what you're talking about, we actually are already in process of doing exactly what you're saying, of having that contract with Tyler, with a specific implementation person that's familiar with permitting and code enforcement and everything that's the InterGov module side of our software, that they're working to get this going faster. Because when you go through the support and the tickets, it's a triage, right? Because there's only so many of them. So we have a dedicated contract with them to do this. And it's Kristen's priority with them to get code enforcement up and going first before we fix the other processes, or not necessarily fix, but make things a little bit more efficient and more workflow being more standardized as well as efficient. So yes, we are already in that process.
okay, thank you. Mayor Bowman.
Thank you. So I don't know how this is gonna go, but it's frustrating to me, very frustrating, because this has been brought up so many times. Former mayor brought it up a lot, made it a big deal. That was a big issue. Code enforcement, beautification, all those things. And to sit here, and hear, well, we gotta fix this program. We gotta fix this program. Like that's been the complaint the whole time. That program should have been fixed. We shouldn't even be having a discussion about any programs whatsoever. It should have been done 6 years ago. And that's my issue with this. This area, if you remember, it's about 6 years ago, was so busy that we were going to farm out the animal control to the county for $130,000+ a year, supposedly, because it was so busy and so overwhelmed, and there was no tracking whatsoever. And we've continued to do the same thing over and over and over again. And what do they say the definition of insanity is? Because that's what I feel like. I feel like we're literally having a conversation, and this, by no means, you came into this, you came into this late, so you're just taking what we give you. But we had talked about this so many times up through last year, about this program isn't working. It's just not working. And I don't see, I see a lot of numbers here, and I think that I think that's good. I think these numbers are, I don't know, they could be low. You know, if you really we looked at proactive when a former city manager was here, we asked him to give us 3 months of proactive code enforcement. And what do we get? 0, none. And I mean, I can get in my car today and drive you down the street, and I can show you things that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be dealt with. And none of it has ever. And we literally just run around to, oh, someone called about a dog barking. And so that became priority number 1, is we're gonna make a bunch of calls about this dog barking and see if we can get to the bottom of it, and not prioritizing this stuff. And I just think it's, we can see it, we see it in our neighborhoods, but I just don't see anything changing. And I think all we're gonna do is throw some more money at it and still not have the programs that we need. And so I think we continue forward with the way we had it. And, or if nothing else, if you say 3 months, 3 to 4 months, we give you May, June, July, August, and see where we're at. I don't think we got what we thought we were going to get this year already. I mean, it's better, I will say that, but when I look at this, it's not better. If we don't have those programs in place, it's not better. And so we're doing a few more things. We just don't have the ability to support it. So I would rather do 3 or 4 months, add, what do we got, 2 left? So add 2 more to it. Go through the end of August and see where we're at. Yep.
Go ahead, Councilmember DeRocher.
As many times as we brought this forward, this is the first time I've seen anybody have ideas for enhancements or recommendations. So I'm feeling very confident in your abilities to make the changes that we're hoping for. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to say, there was a lot of work done. The code rewrite was a big lift, and that positioned us to be able to go to court, do abatement. So I've already met with law and had some conversations. So I really am trying to move forward with this to get clear process and procedures, and to be able to track our cases, track our timelines, be more transparent and predictable. So that is my goal. Again, I feel this is a very important program. If the program goes away, there's no capacity. There's no way to absorb that work. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that point as well.
And I think one more thing to highlight too is, a lot of the changes and shifting of priorities has occurred behind the scenes. And yes, the software still needs work to be able to show all of that work. But we have shifted, the dog barking, for example, we're not going out on those calls anymore. We're requesting that the property owners show us a video of sustained barking so that we're not spending our time on those lower level calls. So we can focus more on the property nuisance areas. So, a lot of those things are happening behind the scenes, and I think that this next step is making sure that we can show that work and and assist the code enforcement officer with being able to stay on track through the software with re-inspections and so forth. And that as those continue to improve, the efficiencies will continue to improve. But even his, open and closed cases and what he's tracking and being able to show now has improved tremendously since the last year. Is it perfect yet? No, we still have work to do.
Okay, staff is looking for consensus to bring forward a budget amendment to include funding of a full-time code enforcement employee for the remainder of 24.
I motion it.
Mr. Cortez. David, 1, 2.
I'd prefer like what Councilmember Bowman said, let's take it out till August, September.
We could do 3/4 to September 30th, but I think we have 4 looking forward to. Right now we have, where are you at?
I like what I hear. I like that I see that there's forward movement, which I haven't seen really that much. I do agree with you on that. I wouldn't have a fit if we pushed it a few more months. I mean, if we see it, then that's great. So if that's what everybody wants to do, is to not do it throughout the rest of the year, do a few more months, I see no harm in that. I just, it's going to show us one way or another. So if that's, I don't know what the motion is right now. Or it's just
we're looking-
consensus.
Just consensus, yeah.
Well, then I'll change mine. That I'll be fine with a couple more months before we not do it the rest of the year.
Yeah, right now I'm hearing consensus to maybe 3/4 FTE, which would get us what, to September 30th? Not ideal, I know, from a budgetary standpoint, not ideal, I know, from a planning standpoint, but I think it's pretty clear the frustration and the longevity of this. This is our only way to voice that in a constructive way. I know that several properties have been on the list, and they may have dropped off, but they have been complaints for 2 to 3 years that are still have 10 to 12 cars in their front yard. I know there has been some improvement, but some of those statistics, I know I went through the month-to-month action, and a lot of those were just parking, just handed off, and 1 month was 12 closed cases. Once you took off what was handed off. So our parking enforcement officer is doing great. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't know whether at some point you utilize a quarter time of that to expand that person's duties to focus on the RVs that are, simple stuff like that. I don't know what the solution is, but that's a position that was just brought on and doesn't seem to be having the same struggles. But also deals with not maybe always as complex issues, but there's some non-complex issues, some simple issues that our code deals with that should allow you to one day close 10 events. I mean, 10 basketball hoops, 10 events done, gone. So I'm not there yet either. But I do agree that it's nice to see a strategy and a plan, and I look forward to seeing you implementing it. So I think consensus is just September 30th, 3/4 time. And then a presentation maybe when you feel comfortable giving us that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And might I say that our previous big issue that Aaron tackled was our fleet vehicle issue that we had battled for years upon years upon years. And finally, we got some implementation on a good program moving forward. So there is hope that hopefully you could tackle this and have the same outcome. So.
Thank you.
And to, I think it might be helpful too for council if they were interested just to do ride-alongs with the code enforcement officer, because to really understand that, I know you've indicated the parking has been very successful. And it has, but that's a completely different animal. Parking issues in the right of way versus dealing with people on their private property rights. And the process for that is a lot more complicated. So that does add that extra factor. So I would encourage any of you, if you want to kind of dive into that deeper, that we'd be happy to schedule those too. So.
Thank you. Is that it for presentations then?
That concludes presentations.
All right, next up, we have citizens' communications. I will now open the meeting for citizens' communications. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes to provide comments. This time is an opportunity to hear from members of the public in a limited public forum and not an opportunity for extended comments or dialogue. Although the city council desires to allow the opportunity for public comment, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. Council may not be able to respond to individual comments and may refer citizens to a staff member to assist. Salili, do we have anybody on Zoom that wishes to comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, did we have anybody sign our handy dandy forms?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good point. One day I'll get it all right. And then you all need to buy me a beer. That's how that's gonna be. All right, consent agenda is next up. Any member of council see any reason to remove any item of the consent agenda?
The interim city manager contract, I just have a question on it, so I'd like it.
I'd entertain a motion for items A through E. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Bowman, second by Cortez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, questions about item F, interim city manager contract?
So we're just gonna have the interim city manager here for roughly 5 weeks, yes?
No, it'll be, it will most likely, the position itself will
3
be
months.
posted for 5 weeks at a minimum.
So no longer than 3 months then, are we
Uh,
thinking?
Could be longer than that.
Up to 6?
Correct.
Okay.
Depends how quickly we all come to a consensus on a candidate as well as many other
Okay,
issues. So it's the position itself, as Cliff says, going to be open, 5 to 6 weeks. Then you're going to have probably a 2 to 3 week window where you may have to have them travel out, make sure schedules align. Then you have the forums. So it will be,
And if they're coming from a different place, they have a duty to give notice, and so it could be 6 or more.
ideally not.
okay.
Could be.
That would make sense why it's on the contract then, the regards, because I was wondering about vacations. They get vacations and they get healthcare paid into, and I'm like, if they're only gonna be here for 3 months, why would they need
It's month to
that?
month. So,
It's month to month, okay. That was it, thank you.
all right. Okay, item F is back on the agenda, consent agenda.
Move to approve item F as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That was a motion by Cortez and a second by DeRochers. Next up, we have ordinance number 2024-04. Was there any testimony provided for the public hearing, Ms. Clerk?
None, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then I will, I'll now open the public hearing at 7:48 for public testimony. Or do we want to have the presentation first? Sorry, I messed up there. didn't I?
Usually
Yeah,
do a
Mr.
quick
Furr,
presentation first.
Yeah, very quickly, thank
your
you.
guys' wallets are safe for another week.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This agenda item and the next agenda item actually represent two distinct groups of changes to the city council's governance manual. Changes that council members will recall had been discussed at their council retreat beginning in February of this year. Because some of these proposed changes are subject to an ordinance and others are made through a resolution, the items have been split and are addressed through separate agenda items. The first set of changes, which is subject to the ordinance, concerns city council meeting dates and times. If the ordinance is approved by the city council, its regular meetings would change from the first and third Monday of each month to the first and third Tuesday of each month, with meetings commencing at 7 p.m. In addition, in the event the city council requires study sessions, those would occur on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month as needed, beginning at 6 p.m. Just as now, if a city council regular meeting date falls on a holiday, such regular meeting shall be moved to the next following business day. Normally with ordinances, changes take effect 30 days after they're approved. This particular ordinance, the way it's worded is it would take effect July 1 of this year. It's a little bit more extra time. It provides staff, we think, ample time to share these changes with the community, so that way everyone's on the same page. That said, staff recommends the city council open and conduct a public hearing regarding these changes, consider any testimony, close the hearing, and then approve ordinance 2024-04 and conduct the required second reading of the ordinance. That concludes our presentation. Staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, open the public hearing at 7:50 PM. For public testimony, individuals are limited to 3 minutes to provide comment on ordinance number 2024-04. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide testimony regarding ordinance 2024-04? No, and none on Zoom?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, then seeing no further members of the public wish to speak, I will now close the public hearing at 7:51 PM. Ms. Clerk, would you please read the ordinance title?
An ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code, Title II, Administration and Personnel, Chapter 2.04, City Council.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know a lot of work has been put into this, and I don't mean to unravel it or cause us to kind of endlessly debate this, but I will bring it up one more time. That there are two other important bodies that meet on Tuesdays. That's CTRAN as well as RTC. So they're pretty high profile, pretty important boards, and you know, again, they may be impacted, they may not be as impacted, but nonetheless, I think it's something we need to consider, but I'll just throw that out. So that's it.
All right, I agree. Councilmember Ferrer?
Yes, I agree. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. I was just thinking about this before the meeting. I was like, do we really want to be having you two gentlemen run from one meeting to the other one? I don't think that's fair. I honestly didn't have a problem with the Mondays. And to be honest, I went to go make another vacation coming up this summer. And it was a lot harder now that we're going to be doing weekly, possibly weekly. So that's something I'd like to throw out in case none of you have tried to plan a trip around these new meetings.
It's a good point. Mr. Rochers?
Yeah, I have a question. What day is the RTC?
Tuesdays,
But which day of the
the
month?
first Tuesday of the month.
And then yours is the second Tuesday. Okay, so council meeting and then study session. So
Yeah.
council meetings at 7. and-
But the study session would hit CTRAN. I don't know why we didn't do Wednesdays, but the CTRAN came up to me later as well. So I also have issues with Tuesday, and yeah, it would be difficult for RTC to, it doesn't always end at 6. They try to end it at 6, but especially on those longer meetings, it can be 6:30, 6:45.
Can we change the day? To a different one then?
We would have to go back and do a hearing and, yeah.
The whole thing again?
The other option is just to leave it as it is, and, and move along. Is that
Yeah,
the
you
end of
guys
it?
still have the option to make changes and we could bring that back for adoption at a future meeting or take no action and stays the way it is.
Well, I like
What's-
breaking it up
what's it-
better. Well, I guess we're all the way at this point and now these things are coming up. I think we need to take a breath here and revisit what we were planning on doing for obvious reasons that you brought up. I don't see the harm in waiting. I see we need to slow our roll a little bit on this. This impacts a lot and for whatever reason, it's coming to head right now. So, I would be in support of just, holding off on this.
Perhaps a work session on it, or do we just want to leave it as it is? Well, we would table this, but we as a body need to give direction that's concise and actually coherent, so.
Yeah, so
we're
you
not
have
doing
an
that currently.
ordinance in front of you. So if you don't pass this, then it would stay as is, or you can make changes and have us bring it back at a later date. There is a resolution that is next on the agenda. So right now, that resolution includes the changes to the meeting days, but we could adopt that tonight, amending taking those out and adopting the rest of the changes that were decided on at the council retreat.
I will say this on a slightly related matter, building on top of what Councilwoman just mentioned. You know, we've had our Monday meetings. How long did it go back to Gamley? And I think Gamley was the last individual, so probably for the last 20 years. Is that right? Mondays? At least 20 years, maybe longer, because they used to be, I think they used to be on Thursdays. Is that right? But again, this is going past, over 20 years ago, probably 25 years ago. And so just from that aspect, the cultural significance of what our community is used to, right? And so it's a big, it would be a big show. So, which I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that just for that, but I'm just saying that is something we have to factor in.
Oh, I like the splitting of sorry.
You can go ahead if you need.
No, I was just saying I like it split, where we're separating the study session from the council meetings.
So there was only one council member that wasn't present during our retreat. And she had a prior obligation. So the rest of us 6 were at that meeting where we decided to have this conversation and get it this far. So I am a little, I guess I was going to stay quiet about this, but we let it get this far. And now we're sitting in a council meeting discussing this and we're having this debate, which I get it. It's for the public forum, but it didn't even have to be brought up. But so I would be a fan of, amending the ordinance, because I do like the fact that we still were looking at study sessions on the alternate weeks for meetings. So it's lessening the amount of time we're here. The reason I think we were trying to move it away from Mondays to take a little pressure off the staff from doing a Monday prep and having to have a meeting presented that night. And so to go back to the original reason we were having this conversation was that, to give staff a little more relief on that. So I would, I'd urge us to try to find a resolution here if we could. I mean, we could table it and have another work session, but it is a little funny that this is all coming to a head now as we're sitting up here on the public forum and having this discussion, and it got this far in the first place. So that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I was unaware of the C-Tran meeting, to be honest, but, the RTCO is willing to do that. But I agree. The other reason to move it from Mondays was because holidays often fall on Mondays, so our meetings end up on Tuesdays anyway, 3 or 4 times a year. So Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Thank you. I do agree with Mr. Overholzer that and I understand C-Tran and RTC, but I also understand that C-Tran and RTC, we don't have much of a voice. We're there, but we do whatever Vancouver and them do anyways. So I think we can represent and leave early if we need to leave. And I just think that we we've talked about this quite a bit, and to get it here, it's at least a couple hours worth of time that, or more, that staff has done with this too, to just now change back. But it's obviously a lot easier to have it on Mondays twice a month, and you can get 2 weeks off almost. And, I get that, but as the city grows, we have a lot more stuff that we need to dive into and to be up to speed on. And when you sit up here and we're making decisions, sometimes $1 million or more, we better know where all those zeros are going. And it's important that we have time to do that. I think in the past, going back to Ganley and their time, they did have 4 meetings a month, and they were doing study sessions on the odd meetings. And the reason for that was to be informed and, figure out what they needed to do. And they were a town of 5,000 back then. We're a town of 21,000 plus, and a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of stuff happening. And so I think that if we're looking for less time, it's probably the wrong time to be looking for less time. It's going to only be more time probably from as we go forward, as we make these decisions. So figuring out when that is, I mean, if it's Mondays, it's Mondays, but I do think we need to we're going to have to have more time than what we can have, because we've all sat through study sessions where we just didn't have enough time, and we can't get the questions answered, and staff can't present stuff quick enough. And, and so we just, you'll make a decision based upon the fact that, and even at 9:30 at night, we'll make decisions based upon the fact that we don't want to stay, and we want to go home, and we're tired, and we're hungry. And so we're just like, whatever. And we make the decisions, and sometimes we need to slow things down and go through the process more. So I like Tuesdays. I do think that it doesn't conflict as much when we have holidays. It does give staff more time to come back off of the weekend and to prepare stuff for the meeting on Tuesday versus on Monday. But I've been doing them for Mondays for a while. So whatever you guys decide.
Mr. Cortez?
Yeah. So again, this is certainly not a battle I'm willing to fight till the end on. But again, to Mr. Overhauser's point, I know he's, new on council, but that's the point of government, right? Local government, you debate, and you do more debating, right? And it's very slow, but it's very open, it's very transparent, can be frustrating at times. But that's how our governments are set up, to move at a very slow pace, and to sometimes to get into moments where you're frustrated, but it's done deliberately that way. Look, this was something I didn't push forward, right? So when we've had these, retreats and everything, other council members have pushed this forward. I didn't have a particular problem, although I did raise at that time that there would be some conflicting meetings. So I'm pretty consistent on that. When I was mayor, to Deputy Mayor Bowman's point, I did point out when we were talking about, the sheer workload that's on council's plate as our city continues to get bigger and has more moving parts, that we would most likely need to meet at least once a week. I'm not saying a city council meeting, but I was saying, city council meeting 1 week, study session next week, so on and so forth. It didn't gain much traction back then, right? And so I get that. If I'm in support of, we need to do that. The only thing is, and if this council wants to go to a meeting on Tuesdays and wants to relinquish its role on RTC and C-Tran, then that's obviously a decision we're going to have to live with. But I also think we need to have some policy put forth that, okay, so basically, every month, whoever's representing us on C-Tran or RTC is going to have to make a choice to attend that meeting or this meeting. Or every month, that person's going to be absent from council on that particular meeting date, right? And so we've withheld votes on council because a council member is missing. So if we've done that in the past, well, we're just setting it up for that again. So it doesn't really, it creates issues that are more likely than not to happen down the road. So that's my whole thing. But if that's the way we want to go with, if we want to do it on Tuesdays, I'm not, it's not a fight I'm gonna battle with. But we do need policy in place on what is the direction you're gonna give people that are on those boards.
Second Tuesday, of what?
Yeah. 5:30 to 7:30. Oh, yeah, depending on the, but there's no way to make both.
So what, I'm just throwing this out here, what if we make because that's a study session week, would be a second week. What if we make our study session the fourth week? And if we need it, the second week, then it would only be by need if we needed a second one that month. We made the study session the fourth week, then C-Tran would be out. So C-Tran would always be, I mean, we keep it available, right? Because there could be times, I think more probably maybe during budget or during the fall, that kind of stuff, where we would need it and make your study session, you know, the main one, the fourth Tuesday, so that we know everyone's gonna be there. Then the only conflict we have is with RTC.
RTC is fine.
So if RTC is fine, then we really wouldn't have a conflict, except for maybe once in a while on that second Tuesday.
Yeah, I
make it
would,
at 7, make them all at 7.
Make them all seven.
Make them all
Yeah,
7.
and then at least you have consistency every Tuesday at 7 PM. I'm all about consistency. It makes it easier on the citizens and myself as well when it comes to scheduling.
So I think what I'm hearing that is, a lot of good ideas, but this needs to go back to the drawing board and come back to us.
That's what I'm hearing too.
That we haven't decided. There's no consensus.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I know Wednesday was a thought too, but I'm fine with Tuesdays. I'm fine with 7s. I'm fine with having the work study be the fourth just scheduled, and then the second Tuesday only as absolutely needed. So
And I was under the impression that the study sessions were gonna be more casual, right?
Correct.
That we would be in the middle and just
correct.
oh, be able to do more actual
Be more, yeah,
work instead of sitting up here.
more like the retreat was set up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's,
So that's more work on them to set it up like that.
Well,
You have
we
to
could
set
probably
this up.
push
These
it.
they have wheels. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Is that clear enough direction, or is that all mud?
Super clear. I mean, do we?
What I'm hearing is Tuesdays,
Tuesdays, every Tuesday at 7, I'm down.
all at 7.
Is that the path you guys want to move down?
Sounds like every Tuesday, 7,
Or at least that's
Um,
needed for the second.
the
and fourth.
study session on the second Tuesday of the month is gonna be,
Primary. The primary one.
As
yeah.
needed,
Yeah,
as needed,
as-
yeah.
Correct. The second one, yeah.
yeah, the primary one's gonna be the
The fourth.
fourth
Yep.
Tuesday.
Do we have to bring that back since we're?
The way the ordinance is written now is that it's set for the first and third Tuesdays at 7 for council meetings, the second and fourth as needed at 6. So that I would keep the code language at least in the ordinance that way. And then, within your existing governance manual, you can state that the fourth would be your priority.
But we wanted to switch that to 7 is what I'm hearing.
And then you would need to amend the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, they're gonna go back and.
Yeah,
redraft the language.
we can bring this back. That,
Let's bring this back and
Would
make
you-
it clean.
okay. And then with that, then would you like to table and bring back the resolution as well? So they're all. consistent?
We'll need a motion for both of those. To table them, or just.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean, not table, but bring that back at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's consistent.
That would be ideal.
Yes.
Ooh, that was easy.
But we don't, We don't have to do another public hearing on it.
No, you do not need to do another public hearing. You've spoken about the changes.
We need to vote on the clean resolution, I believe, yeah. I would rather have everybody sit on it. Let's just wait. There's no reason to rush.
So we will amend the language as we discussed and bring that back at the next meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, May
So-
6th.
It's all good. Like you said, it's messy. No worries. I'd rather get it right and slow than fast and wrong. So we'll skip over resolution 24-02, which brings us to administrative reports.
All right, I just have one administrative report this evening. We've discussed the military banner program several times. We started this program about 3 years ago. We did have some success right out of the gate and then it kind of slowed down. So we did talk about this in 2023. It was brought to council's attention that we hadn't been getting any participants. We also brought this forward to the PACE board. At that time, it was agreed to give this program one more year and see if we got any other participants, and we have not. I think I've talked with many of you offline and all understanding that, I think it's the price of the banners and the fact that they're only up that 1 month. We just haven't had a lot of participation. We still seem to do fairly well on the BRICS program, which helps fund the maintenance and everything of the Veterans Memorial. So at this time, we've decided to disband the military banner program. And I just wanted to make sure that that was good and we had consensus with council moving forward.
If we don't have enough signups, we don't have enough signups.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That concludes administrative reports.
Okay, brings us to council communications. Any council member communications this evening?
Well, kind of goes hand in hand when you say the word banner. I seem to be the one that keeps bringing it up. How are we doing?
Yesterday.
Well, Mark hasn't had a chance to speak this evening, so
Yeah,
he can give us an update
Mark.
on
It's me.
how we're doing with the banner, the holiday banner.
somebody might have bugged him about this late last week.
Yeah.
So he should be right there.
Yeah, so we got the structural and the geotech back, so we have the design complete. The legals should be done shortly, so we'll have the 2 easements going out from the abutting property owners, and we should be ready to order everything with the structural and the geotech complete. So I think we're looking fine from what I can tell. The only risk I see is just the poles. Sometimes there's procurement issues, so supply chain, that kind of stuff. I don't think that's gonna happen here, but if we hear that there's an issue, we might start looking around from other PUDs or that sort of thing, just to see if they have 2 appropriately sized ones laying around. So I think it's looking good from what I can tell.
Is there any reason just not to order the polls now?
Yeah, no, that's the plan, to order them this week.
All right, well, maybe there will be Christmas after all. Okay, this meeting's adjourned at 8:12 PM. Thank you. What's that? Yeah, I told.